lost track of time on the second one, and yeah, so this thing actually managed to finish. So yeah, what I was saying was, now when I need, let's say, to get let's say a sentence, a specific sentence, instead of having to like have different variables for every sentence, I would just say customer sentence. I mean, the language I was using was JavaScript, so it was customer dot sentence. But yeah, basically this thing has its different uses. You really get to appreciate it when you use um, yeah, when you work on projects. But I guess it's just good to know this concept. The other types of lists, we have tuple. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it tuples, sets? These ones, because I haven't really used this language that much, I can't really like give you like some examples or applications I've used them for, because otherwise I find them similar to this. But I guess they have the advantages. This one, I read that you can't change it; it's unchangeable. Yeah, so I guess it has its advantages. I guess you really appreciate it when you actually use it. So yeah, one of the things I do, one strategy that I use is, like, ideally you can't memorize. I don't know, for me, at least for me, I can't really memorize all these things, like all their meanings and all this notation and all these things. So what I'll do, when especially when you're new to programming, right? So what I'll do is, I'd at least have an idea of where everything fits in. So if I'm working on a project that involves having a list of, let's say, customer names and customer data, I could basically be able to, I'll know that, oh, okay, so what I have to read is just somewhere around this area, instead of like having to go through all these resources. Or you can just Google search like how to make a list in Python or something like that, with your schools, and then you get like, the best, yeah, the best resource for it. But yeah, this one technique I use. But yeah, I guess now that we've done this, the next transition is loops, right? So to explain loops, um, let's see. So we have the while loop. Yeah, so Python has two loops, the while loop and the for loop. So I'm gonna explain loops to you. So let me use this board. Um, Loops are very important part of programming. As I said before, uh, actually one of my favorite concepts in programming is loops, is working with loops. They make like what you do so easy, right? So basically, I guess you're wondering, what is a loop, right? So let's say you have a list, right? These work very commonly with lists, right? Let's say you have a list of customers, let's say, or sales, let's say, different months. So you have January, February, uh, March, all the way to, I'm not gonna write all that down. Say, yeah, all the way to December, right? December here, right? And you um you want to, let's say, calculate sales for each of these, right? Let me just do this so that I can see the time. Just give me a second. All right. Yeah. So um, you have, let's say, you want to get customer sales. No, you want to get sales for each of this month. You want to get the sales of each of these months, of, let's say, January, and you want to get the cost of each of these months, right? Let's say you have the sales. Let's say this is a collection of dictionaries. So if you remember from the previous lesson, I talked about, oh, I think I have it here. Dictionaries, right? These things, right? Dictionaries, right? So let's say you create a list of dictionaries. I know you're probably asking, how can I create a list of dictionaries? I'll get into that. I'll get into that. But you can actually create a list of dictionaries, right? So let's say you have a list of, uh, you know, 12. Oh, okay, let me move this clear all and move this tool. Let's say you have a list of, January to this. I mean, you can easily, create like a script, right, where you just say, let's say the name of this variable is, let's say, uh, total, right? Total, right? Let me just write that. Total. you can just easily you know, like do total um, total this is how I spell total, total, and then you know the notation for total 1, right? Or let's say 0, right? 0, and then you know be able to get information from January, right? And you can do this all the way to you know Feb, like 12 times, right? But what if, I mean, even the 12 times is kind of a lot of work, right? What if, let's say, you have a list that is, let's say, has 1,000 different elements, right? 1,000 different elements. So you know, to do that over and over again, you know, it's just a waste of time. Well, what if, even better, right? You have a list that is indefinite. What if, let's say, you're working at Facebook and you have a list of every user account or something like that, and you know people are creating accounts every day, you know, so you can't like possibly type you know all these things forever, right? So that's where loops come in, right? What loops do basically, let me just erase this to get more space. What loops do is they allow you to automate different, you know, to be able to go over lists and do the same thing, right? So actually the notation for Python in list is actually kind of different from what most languages do. So I won't focus on theirs, but what you do in list is that, you know, like for example, let's say add I want to do something specific to January. The same thing I also want to do for Feb and for these things. A loop allows you to basically go through this, you know, every element with just one line of code. So what I mean by that is, for example, right? Let's say every element here. Let's say we have sales. Let's say we have sales for a month or something like that. Sales for a month, you know, and in one list, you know. No, let's just keep one list. Yeah, you have sales for a month or something like that, and you want to find out what was, you know, 50% of all sales. No, no, that's too much specific. What was, okay? Let me think of an example. Okay, I thought of something. Let's say you want to add $50 to every. Let's say you discover that, oh, you know, we haven't been adding a certain amount to all our sales, so you know every month we are supposed to add 20% more sales. So every month we had a 20% more sales than the list we currently have, right? So you know, to basically to be able to do that for every value. Wow, what is up with this? To do that for every value would be tedious work, right? So with a loop, you know, if let's say, you know, what you want to do for every element is just that for every element here, you want to, you know, multiply it by 1.20. 1.20 is like adding 20% of the value. I mean, you don't have to really understand this. This is just a math thing. Whenever you want to add, let's say, 20% to 2000, like 20% of 2000, it's just, you know, 1 plus the percentage you want to add. So 1.2. Yeah, so let's say you just do 2000, this element times 1.2 for every element here, right? So a loop allows you to basically just have this line of code here and to be able to apply it for everything here, you know, and to output a result, you know, for all these things, or even modify the list, right? So as said before here, you have two types of loops. Oh, sorry, loops. Let me just open loops. You have two types of loops. You have the for loop and the while loop. The for loop is the most famous one, the for loop. I use this a lot. I mean, you can use the while loop as well. I mean, depends on your needs and what you're doing, you know. I use the for loop a lot. Yeah, I'm just used to. But yeah, the while loop is also good. I'm going to start with the while loop. So basically, with the while loop, um, so just give me a second, sorry. Right, so for the while loop, the notation for it is um, as the name suggests, you use the word while, right? So what happens first is you always have to have a number, right? Because this is a very numeric thing. It's just working with numbers, right? Working with positions, sorry. I mean, you can do words and all these things, but you need to have, because it's counting, because it's repeating a process over and over again. It's repeating a process over and over again, right? So, you know, with any process, you know, you have to count how many times you want to repeat the process, right?